Today I'm going to show you how modern fuel injection cleaning systems work. Now I've been working on cars for the last 46 years, so I've seen a lot of changes in both the cars and the gasoline that goes in them. So needless to say, cleaners that worked 45 years ago aren't going to work that good today for two main reasons. First, modern gasoline has up to 10% ethanol in it. And second, many modern cars like this Volkswagen have gasoline direct injection systems that often lead to carbon buildup inside the engine. Now if you're using an old-fashioned additive like seafoam, it doesn't have the additives that are going to work with alcohol and with gasoline direct injection systems all that well. It's called seafoam for a reason. It was originally used for two-stroke outboard motor engines. But today, even most outboard motor engines are four-stroke engines. So if you want to keep your engine and fuel system clean, you need an additive that can work with four-stroke motors and with gasoline that has ethanol in it. Now the naphtha and the pale oil that's inside the seafoam works great on two-stroke motors. They need oil in the gas anyways to make them run. But if you're driving a modern car, especially if it has gasoline direct injection and the fuel has a lot of ethanol in it, you need an additive that's made just for that. A modern car with modern gas, not an old motorboat engine. Now the main cleaning ingredient in a gum out is polyetheramine, or PEA. It's a nitrogen-based cleaner. When you see those signs at the Shell gas station that say nitrogen power, it's the same stuff that they're using. It'll clean the inside of your engine really well, especially if you have a gasoline direct injection where the carbon buildup often occurs if you don't have enough cleaner. And it also has corrosion inhibitors, so when you pour it in the gas tank, it keeps the ethanol in the gasoline from corroding your system. Now I've had a lot of complaints from my own customers saying they hate that gasoline that has ethanol because it makes their cars run poorly. It can actually corrode stuff, but if you have anti-corrosion inhibitors in it, it won't hurt your car. Now I know some people are going to say, hey, why should I listen to that guy? What does he know what he's talking about? Well, actually, I don't believe what most people tell me either. So you can do what I do. Use the stuff and test it. I use my borescope to look inside the engines once you take a spark plug out to see if the stuff's actually cleaning. You don't have to buy a real expensive one. You can get them for 80 or 90 bucks nowadays. They're all made in China. Just do like I did. Take out a spark plug, just put it in a hole and look inside before you use the cleaner. Then run 2 or 3 tankfuls full of gas with a can of this stuff in, and then check it out with a borescope again to see if it's clean. Here's a before picture with the piston all clogged up with carbon. And here's a later picture where you can see it's much cleaner. So if you're like me and you want your car to last forever, you might try some of this Gum Out multi-system cleaner. Now here's an oddball one. We got a 2007 Toyota Corolla and it doesn't run right. It accelerates very sluggish, and the weird thing is he took it to various dealers and they all said they can't find what's wrong with it. So let's see if they were screwing them around or whether it's something that even I can't figure out. Now theoretically it's had spark plugs, air filters, everything. I don't trust anybody. But I'm going to start by checking the battery and alternator. Many problems can be created by lack of power from the alternator or battery. So cheapest battery you can get from AutoZone. Check the old battery. Since it's not a very expensive one, who knows? Now it says 520 cold cranking amps, so set it up for that. In vehicle, battery post, top post, regular, cold cranking amp. Got to put it way down to 520, and let's see what it says. Good battery. Okay, now we'll check the alternator. So start it up. That's working fine. So we know it's getting correct voltage to everything. Now let's just take a general overview of the engine. Make sure they weren't lying about the air filter. Now that's clean. Okay, all the hoses are hooked up. There's no loose hoses anywhere. That's all on. So we'll take the stupid beauty cover off. Everything looks pretty normal so far. So let's check out a spark plug. We'll take the number 1 out. That's the one in the front of the engine. They don't give you enough working room, so you got to pull the wire off. And that's always fun on these. You got to squeeze and pull. There we go. All right, that's out of the way. Now we'll get a spark plug socket, pull out the spark plug, and we'll examine it. Pretty much normal color, grayish. There's no soot or anything on it. So we'll measure with feeler gauges. It's 44 thousandths of an inch. If the gap was wrong, it can run wrong, but it's gapped right and it's running fine. So there's nothing wrong with that. So we'll put this back together. Nothing obvious showed wrong. So we'll plug in the scan tool. See what it says. It's reading all the information now. It knows what it is, so we'll do a network scan. This baby's only got 118,000. That's not much for a Toyota Corolla. Now it does have one failed module. Let's see what it is. It has a code for failed engine immobilizer system. Well, that can't be making the car not accelerate right. That's immobilizer system. That in the key The chip and the key has to match the computer. If it doesn't, the car will not start. It starts, it just has no acceleration. So that's not the problem. So we'll switch over to live data. In this case, you're better than a computer. The computer hasn't found any failure, but it doesn't accelerate right. The computer's only going to trip code. Sometimes it has to go as much as 25% plus or minus the normal data, which, hey, if it's 23%, you can feel it running poor, but it won't trip any code. We're going to start looking at the data. Short term, it's subtracting fuel, but long term, it's adding fuel. It's odd. So the fuel trim is kind of squirrely. Let's try to figure out why. Look at the spark advance, rev it up a little. Well, that's working. Goes up when you accelerate and goes back down when you go back to idle. Taking a while to get back down, but that's because I got all this data and the data isn't going to refresh fast enough. In this case, the MAF sensor, 2.03 grams per second. How you really want to test it is turn the AC off, put it in drive, and see what it does. Now it's idling. It's saying 2.39 grams per second, 2.34. This is a 1.8 liter engine. It should be reading closer to 2 or 1.8 than 2.34. Now, one thing that can cause loss of acceleration and weird fuel trims is a clogged catalytic converter. So we got a gauge. We're going to take out an oxygen sensor and see if it's got too much pressure. If it does, the catalytic converter is starting to clog up. Now, as we look down, conveniently, there's an oxygen sensor right here. We got an oxygen sensor socket, and we're going to remove it. They're usually pretty stuck, so I'm going to use a real long bar, extension bar, to get it loose. There it goes. And we can unscrew it. Take the socket off now. Put it up here. We'll unscrew it. And you can see the sensor's pretty new. They tried a new sensor and it didn't fix. But did they test it? I don't know. We're going to put in an oxygen sensor tester. Then we'll tighten the socket to make sure it's sealed right. You got to have it tight or you won't get the right pressure reading. Now it's nice and snug. You can screw the gauge in. And now you can see the gauge is hooked up, and we'll start the car. Start it up. Give it a few revs. And we see it has no pressure at all. Now we'll rev it up and see if it changes. As you can see, the gauge moved a little, but it means nothing. If you have 2.5, 3, 4, 5 pounds pressure, the cat's clogged up. But this stays pretty much at almost no pressure at all, meaning the exhaust system is free and it's not restricted. So it's not there. We'll remove the gauge and the socket adapter. Then I'll use my magnet to pull it out. I use a magnet so I don't burn my finger. So I'll blow into this one. And you can see it moves. I blew in it, so the gauge is working fine. So now we're bringing out my big boy, my OTC high-level scanner. See if it gives us more information we can use. Since the MAF sensor's already been changed, and then it's got a Nippendenso one, the correct one for the car. It's not that. He said he had the MAF sensor changed. It made no difference. It still ran poorly. Let's see what Bosch has to say. We go to diagnostics, auto ID. I'm going to do all the mode 9 data and mode 6 data. It's a much more specific machine, so we get a lot better information. Start it up and do data stream. Since we're having problems with the running, we're going to do engine transmission. Now we'll start with all data items just to get a general overview. Now as we look, the long-term fuel trim, it's adding fuel. So long-term it is running rich. Even though now the short term it's actually subtracting a tiny amount of fuel. The ignition advance is 14, that's normal. We'll rev it up. Goes back up, and then we let go, goes back down. You notice on the previous scan tool it took a while for the ignition timing to go back down because it's a cheaper tool. This Bosch one is much better. It refreshes quicker, hence when we took our foot off the gas it went back to normal timing like it's supposed to fast. Not the car that's doing it, that was the scan tool differential. Looking at the rest of the stuff. Got to refresh the screen now. And we can see at idle it's 1.96, 2 grams per second. That's normal at idle. Now when we bring it up to about 2,500 RPM in neutral, it should read about 7 grams per second. We'll get it up to 2,500. There it is. So it's reading right there. I got it down a little. It's hard to keep it up, but that's working. It's going up and down like it should. Now that is a new Toyota Nippendenso mass airflow sensor, but you can't trust anything. I tested it. That's worked. So let's check the air fuel sensor. The monitor sensor 2, bank 1 sensor 2, bank 1 sensor 1. All right, we're going to check that stuff. As you can see, the one that we checked before, the air fuel sensor bank 1 sensor 1, that has voltage, but the bank 1 sensor 2, it's not changing at all. There it is. It goes 0. It seems to be lazy. Rev it up, it's not moving like the other one. eventually does. So we might have a lazy oxygen sensor, but let's go further. Now looking at the fuel system, we got a long-term fuel trim it's adding, so it's running slightly lean. Now it shows no misfires at all. So this is a real quandary. It's running just slightly lean. I'm guessing the fuel injectors are just kind of old and worn. A lot of times you can clean them. I'm gonna try some of this royal purple, throw it in a gas tank, and see what happens. Got the nice funnel so it fits right in. So in this case the funnel got stuck, so you gotta stick your finger in and then pull it out. Well, isn't that just the cat's meow? There it goes. You can always wiggle them out. We'll start her up, go for a good half-hour drive, and we'll leave it in second gear so it'll rev higher and burn quicker. We'll let it tick at about, say, 4,000 RPMs for about half an hour of driving. Well, we've driven around now, so let's check the fuel trim now. And you can see the long-term fuel trim has gone to 0.8%. That means it's only adding a tiny amount of fuel instead of about 5% it was adding before. So it's fixing it. Now, that was only a half-hour drive. As you drive longer, it can even do a better job. Dirty fuel injectors seem to be one of the biggest problems in this vehicle. Now, you know, something as dumb as slightly dirty fuel injectors that don't spray enough fuel or don't make the perfect conical shape can make your car hesitate when you try to take off. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.